stuff.
Single-handedly.
We're ready to go. We're live. We're doing fun things here at the PBIOS 2025. That's the Permian Basin International Oil Show, Ector County Coliseum, Odessa, Texas, heart of oil country. If we don't wake up in the morning and go to work, the rest of America can't go to work. I'm your host, Kieth Stelter, trying to bring a little positive PR to the oil and gas industry, one interview at a time, one subject matter expert at a time, one. Today's been a couple politicians at a time. It's been a great time. PBIOS Live brought to you by TD Williamson, Pipeline Repair. Check them out online. Thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you for my little company, Maze Environmental, giving me the time to come down to the show and check it all out. Have some great gentlemen sitting next to me. Actually, one of them is our guest co-host, Mr. Scott Emerson. Wave to the crowd. You probably know him, and if you don't, you should. Mr. Super Rod himself, fiberglass rods, right?
Yes,
Did
sir.
I get that?
Yes,
Heck
sir.
yeah. And the man in the middle is the guest of honor. We'll let him do his own interview or own introduction to let you know who exactly. We'll say, as much as you want, as little as you want. Take it away, Kevin. Tell everybody who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Kevin Sparks. I'm currently serving as the state senator for District 31, which includes most of the Permian Basin and most of the Panhandle of Texas. Represents 45 counties and represents about 40% of the economic output for the whole state of Texas.
Do you know how many people that is, kind of ballparkish off the top of your head?
A little over 900,000 constituents.
Really? Is that more? Like, we had August Pfluger on earlier. He said he was about 700 or something. So you got more than he does?
So it's larger than a congressional district, yes.
Heck yeah, right on. That's pounder right there. Yeah,
that's a lot of folks, and it really is. It's a lot of economic power, not just for the state of Texas, but because what we do in the oil and gas industry, and in the cattle industry up in the Panhandle, it affects the whole United States.
Definitely. One thing I've kind of noticed. The president can change one way or the other, but if Texas isn't governed the right way, it could be a big trouble. You could shut down the energy industry, the ports, the border. It would be a complete mess for the United States. So energy is a big part of that.
Well, the Texas economy right now, I think, is about the 8th largest economy in the world. So we have a larger economy than the country of Russia.
I think even larger than Canada, isn't it?
It is.
That's where I'm headed.
We weren't going to say
tomorrow.
that.
No, you could say it.
Okay,
It's it shouldn't be, but it is. There's entire countries that Texas is larger than, and I'm proud to be here. And what are some of the up and coming things? In the Texas legislature, y'all were kind of hitting on some things before we started filming that you want people to know out there.
Well, so for those of you who don't know, the Texas legislature meets every other year for 140 days and on odd years. So we actually met from the middle of January till early June. And during our regular session, we had quite a few wins, I think, this spring. I was privileged to carry 3 different bills that addressed oil field theft, which has been a huge problem.
That has been brought up. Yep.
Obviously, with the previous administration's open border policies, we've just seen this huge surge of coordinated oil field theft. So 3 different pieces of legislation, each giving authority and granting some funds to law enforcement and the Railroad Commission to try and combat that. Another, what I think is a huge win for the state of Texas, and that's what I was visiting with Scott about prior to the podcast, was water infrastructure. And this is large infrastructure for the whole state of Texas.
And with that, is that something that their everyday citizens going to see? Is that just for the oil and gas industry, that water infrastructure?
No, it is. It's the intent would be over time to create water infrastructure for the whole state. There's only one small portion in East Texas that really probably has all the water they need for the foreseeable future. I mean, even communities like Houston, with the type of influx of population, are in various they're in various situations of being water poor at some point in the near future.
You know, I do lots of work with the Produced Water Society. You know, the Permian Basin produces more water than it does oil at certain points. You know, anything in that legislation that helps some of those companies developing technologies to utilize some of that water, not only just for refracs, but irrigation, farming, any of that kind of stuff?
Yes, we had a number of bills, and I was privileged to work with Senator Perry, who's kind of spent the last 10 or 12 years working on water for the state of Texas. And we had a number of bills that actually are going to help reduce regulation and also create some additional supervision to make sure that as we transition into using some of that produced water for agriculture purposes and other things, going to really help stimulate, private industry in their ability to make that happen.
You know, there's so much of it around here. I can't wait for the day where we can take the satellite photo of what it is now, where it's all nice and brown, to where start using it to irrigate the area and be all nice and green and lush, and everyone can stop complaining that it's too dry and dusty out here. So that's my hope, of that we're closer to that today than we ever been.
Yeah. Well, we could always use more rain. Even cleaned up filtered water is not the same as God-given rain. But
no, sir. But
it's not often that the Permian Basin, which is a desert, has more average rainfall than South Texas. But right now, South Texas is going through a severe drought, and they could use any kind of water if we could clean it up and get it to them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And of course, obviously, South Texas has its own production as well. And so as the oil patch continues to evolve in their ability to clean water up and use it for different things, it's going to help all around the state.
I agree.
Electricity prices around here, we got all the natural gas we could ever want around here. We got it, so much of it that we burn it, we flare it, we vent it. Any plans for any power plants powered by any of this stuff to help bring some of these prices down? Is there any work being done in the legislature to help make some of that easier or work towards that?
I mean, you've brought up a real sore point. Texas is a little bit stuck right now because we don't have a lot of the decision makers I believe don't have accurate information as to where we sit as far as grid reliability. We're somewhere 35 to 40% currently dependent on wind and solar and batteries, and 94% of the power generations that's in the queue to be built over the next 5 years is more wind, solar, and batteries, which will push us, I think, well over 50%, which leaves us really at risk of not having the type of dependable power that we need to power the whole state of Texas, and especially the oil and gas industry.
Well, I got nothing against, adding more solar and wind, but why is there such a pushback against, turning the gas that we have into power when we're basically doing it anyway, but just wasting it with flaring and a few other things?
Well, it's not that there's pushback against it. It's that currently, with all the federal subsidies, and this has been the case for the last 25 years, with all the federal subsidies, the way the ERCOT market is currently structured, there's no incentive to build natural gas-fired power generation. So all of the incentives are there from Green New Deal money to build wind, especially solar farms right now. There, hardly any regulation in those, and so they go up quickly. The problem is they're not a very good source of electricity for the amount of space that they take up, and the sun goes down every night, days that it doesn't shine. All of those times you have to have dispatchable power, but we don't have a market right now that values dispatchable power.
No, I understand that. I have my own natural gas backup generator that powers the whole house, and it comes on every once in a while, and I'm just happy to look at the dark neighborhood and turn my air conditioning on to max and just enjoy the cold air.
Well, when you look at the state of Texas and specifically the Permian Basin, there's no reason why this energy-rich state should not be the most independent from a power standpoint as any state in the union. And yet I just saw a report last week that was published. You take states like Florida. Florida, 80% of their power is generated with natural gas. They don't have a lot of natural gas, but they have access to natural gas through pipelines. We actually produce it here. And as you said, we've got areas, a lot of times we're flaring it, and yet our market, we don't have the structure in place to really promote gas-fired power generation.
So how do we get to a place where we can do that?
So here's another reality. Right now, residential power costs are higher in Texas than they are on all of our neighboring states, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. The people in Texas need to pay attention and start letting their public officials know that they demand us to make a change. Because right now, there's not the political will to go in and push back against the literally billions of federal subsidies that are coming into Texas.
It wasn't that long ago that almost everybody in Texas was affected by Snowmageddon. You would think 4 or 5 days without electricity that they would have been calling their state representatives and senators and getting something done.
We like to forget pretty quick.
They did. We do have short memories, but the most disheartening thing about that, they had several weeks of hearings on that. And what the legislators walked away from those hearings is that the gas producers are what failed in the state of Texas.
Oh, wow.
Which, yes, I know we sit here and go, how could they have possibly come to that conclusion? When the reality was that ERCOT, because they didn't have a very good grasp of their overall system, shut all the power down to all of West Texas. When you shut the power down in sub-zero temperatures, everything freezes up.
They shut out all the compressors and all that.
And that's why we didn't have natural gas. Had we had sufficient dispatchable power like we did 25 years ago in Texas, we'd have never had a problem with Uri.
No, and that's why we keep bringing it up, and hopefully we remind the odd person that this is, we need nothing against all the other sources of electricity. The population's growing. We need more power, not less, more energy, not less. And, it's definitely, it comes down to PR, I guess, maybe at this point where I know you don't want to burn all this stuff because you're going to make CO2. But at the end of the day, I think most people don't understand that the CO2 percentage is 0.04%. It's not even a top 3 gas in the atmosphere. We're not. Well, I like to say when some of the guys we need to get close to net zero. I'm like, congratulations, we're at zero.
We're at zero. Yeah, I'm at that.
You did it. All your stuff. We did it.
And if it got a little higher, trees would grow bigger. So
yeah.
When you realize, and we learned this back in late April in a federal Senate hearing, that from the date that Trump got elected to the date that he took office, more than $93 billion went out the back door through the Department of Energy for new Green Deal projects. $93 billion. Wow. And a lot of those dollars are finding their home here in the state of Texas because we've got a lot of land. We're very liberty-minded. We're a low regulatory state. To me, it feels like we're being used.
And I would agree with that.
Little manipulation going on.
Definitely. What's your thoughts quickly? Oil's a little bit low. How do we get it back to that sweet spot? I know the president's really into keeping it low to keep gas low, but at a certain point, it gets a little too low and things start going south. How do we find that place again?
Once again, I think education is a critical component. There's actually a group of folks leaving today, going to Washington, D.C., that are going to be spending the next couple of days talking to the Trump administration and to legislators to help them understand that if they continue to push the price of oil down from where we are now, that
It's going to be catastrophic.
Could be catastrophic consequences. And so, I tell people all the time, the fastest way to $100 crude is $40 crude. And,
That's true.
and we've seen that over and over and over in our industry. I don't think most people outside the industry really understand that. And that if they drive that price down from where we are now, that it literally will take years to get us back to a point where we can produce the kind of volumes that we're currently producing.
Is not the solution some more refineries to keep, the gasoline a little bit cheaper and have these production costs, and still have $75 oil? Isn't there, bottlenecks in our refining capacities now with some of the shutdowns around the country? I know, what wasn't it? Phillips 66 just shut something down in California. They had a fire at another one in California. They got their own little issues over there. But even here, don't we have some capacity issues in Texas as far as refinery?
Well, we do. And most of that is because of significant federal regulation. And so, I applaud the Trump administration for the work that they did the first term, and that I assume they're doing now with Lee Zeldin, at the helm of the EPA, trying to take a practical approach to our energy industry, and that's nationwide. So, yes, we've got some constraints, but I think right now probably the biggest thing that's happening is geopolitical, where we're trying to encourage production around the globe to push the price of oil down. There are a number of reasons for that. Russia, that's their sole source of funding their war. And so I think likely there's some reasoning there.
Very much so. Thank you for doing this, Kevin. Really appreciate it. This is how many oil shows have you been to?
Oh gosh. I've lost count. So as you know, that's my background is oil and gas, and I grew up in Midland. So I've been coming out here a long time. It's always a great event. Weather's going to be fantastic this week. Would really encourage anybody that's never been out here to take time to come visit. A lot of technology out here. It's really a fascinating time.
This is our third oil show doing an interview. Do you remember the first time when someone suggested you go do a podcast? You probably didn't even know what a damn podcast was at that point and wondered, what am I getting myself into?
I had barely announced that I was going to be running for state senate. And so I think you were my very first podcast.
I think I was too, talking to the young man who was running the show for you there. They were just shocked, and you're like, you want to do this? And it all just kind of came together, and I had a heck of a time. So thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you guys for having me today. Thanks for the work that you continue to do, not only your podcast, but your efforts to clean up around West Texas. And, it's just, I tell people all the time, all across the district, it takes all of us doing our part to make this thing work.
Perfect. Well, I look forward to your donation to help me keep it going and stuff.
Fair enough.
Maybe you could tell me how I could get some state support too. Well, we never know. We're at the PBIOS 2025. This is PBIOS Live, brought to you by TD Williams. Check it out online. We're going to be on all the different social media pages. This has been a great event for years and will be so for years to come. This is day one. Day 2, 3, yet to happen. Come on down to the Ector County Coliseum in Odessa, Texas. And until next time, everybody, that's how you troubleshoot.